There. All right, folks, welcome back to another week. Friday SEO Chat. We're talking about clients, client relations, managing expectations, everything in between. And just before we start, I guess we were talking about proposals, so that's probably the best place to start. So I guess here's a question I raised in the Facebook group a couple of weeks ago. When you find yourself, you generally get an RFP from a client. Now, I don't care if it's it doesn't have to be a full technical RFP sheet. It's just, you're getting asked to do certain things. So I guess my first question for everybody is, do you ever find yourself, or I find myself doing this a lot, that what they're asking for isn't always what they need? So how far do you guys like step outside of what's been asked of you when you see things, that they actually need? Like this one guy, his keywords were a mess, and he wanted to go right to the audit and the strategy stage, and I was like, your keyword. So in my proposal, I ended up suggesting things that weren't asked for. And so there's always that fine line. Does the client think you're a douchebag who's trying to get more money out of him, or are you actually trying to, because I end up putting far more into proposals than I was asked to put in the first place.
Well, David, whether clients like it or not, there are certain steps you've got to take to be able to provide a proper solution. And to some of them, they may have had unrealistic expectations where they thought that just by adding a few keywords here and there and looking at density and all that other garbage would really work. So they might have budgeted £500, when in fact for them to become maybe an authority in their niche area, it's going to take social, it's going to take content, it's going to take a lot more. And I think that part and parcel of the trick in many ways is, prior to them even becoming a client or when you're looking to propose to them, if they really want the stars, but if they've got a budget that's worth £500 and they can't, for sure they can't achieve what they want unless they're going to have to put in more time and effort and some budget, then I would kind of turn that away, or maybe get them to educate themselves more online, maybe with a hangout, maybe with some books, because it's always the case that people want to shoot for the stars, and often people don't know what it takes. And with the semantic web, with authority, with content, you're not going to get all that done when someone simply thinks that they just need to add a keywords tag to their website, and you know what I mean, and that's it. So I often turn away clients. I'll often maybe suggest them to go somewhere else. I might even try to educate them myself.
Send them to someone you don't like.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Well, what's really funny? For those who are willing to put, maybe for those who are willing to do an awful lot of work for tuppence or for $1, then fine, let them. But if they're running a business and they have costs and they have overheads, and they're a consultant or they're an agency, it's financially unfeasible. But there are many people out there who will willingly do stuff.
And they're capable. Yeah, again, like, how much did we charge 10 years ago compared to today?
Exactly. So it's the way a lot of clients, I think about it. But saying that, I've had clients come to me, or potential clients come to me, and they've said, well, we've got a budget, we're looking to do this, we're looking to do that, and maybe I'll propose that they end up spending maybe a quarter more, half more than they were suggesting, or maybe even double. But then a lot of it is to do with then really getting into their company, really understanding what they're trying to achieve, and right from the outset, in many ways, from the pre-qualifying stage, seeing where you can add value that maybe isn't even to do with SEO.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because one thing I do a lot of when I'm doing initial meetings for proposals and stuff is literally what you're saying. Start talking to them about their business model. What is your business model? How are you generating revenues? What are your primary, secondary conversion points, and so forth? Which on bare face doesn't seem like SEO to a lot of people, but for me, yeah, I need to know what the goals are. What are your processes? What do you have? To understand where I need to go with what I'm doing. And yeah, it may seem counterintuitive, but I definitely do that all the time.
Absolutely.
You got to crawl inside their business head a little bit and really get immersed in it to understand. Because a lot of times, there's so many clients, they're so close to things, they don't see the forest for the trees. And like I just having a conversation yesterday with a client that's about what's your USP? Well, he understands instinctively what one of his big advantages is, but he's not playing it up, not promoting that advantage. And he's got a massive competitor who's kicking his butt in the SERPs, but he's also got a bunch of piss ants that are kicking his butt in the SERPs, that don't offer anything. Hell, some of them don't even offer a product that's available in his region.
And the USP is another one. I agree. I do tend to get into that when I'm starting up, getting to know a new potential client. And for folks listening, that's unique selling proposition. What that means essentially is what makes you better than your competition? What is your advantages over your competition? What are your selling points? And yeah, for sure, that's a biggie. The keywords thing, Tony, I get it. I get it. That's another one that I think is almost unanimously always they seem to get it wrong coming in the door. What they think they want to target and what they want to spend. I had a guy last week, and he had, I think, 13 terms. A couple were vanity, a couple were local, but the rest were just kind of in, track lighting and stuff like that. And I said, well, you got to think about this. If each of these terms getting to page one is, let's say $500 a month for each term for 6 months to get you there, just as an arbitrary number. I said, that's $39,000. Are you aware that that's what it's going to take, or should we start trimming this list and making it more usable? And the second problem was they were sort of quasi-terms. Again, track lighting, it's going to cost you more to rank because you have more competition. But people coming to that SERP could be looking for informational queries, not transactional. So now you've chopped your potential fucking, it's cost you more to get there, so I told him, how about we target stuff with transactional terms, like buy fucking track lighting, because that's what you're doing. You're selling track lighting. And that term is going to have less competition, but have a more focused user that's more apt to, convert. So
you nailed it. Exactly, and a lot of the potential clients I come across have to be taught that there are informational searches, transactional searches, and navigational searches. And it's almost like when you take it back to them searching on Google themselves, I always try and say to them, well, when you go and look for something in Google, I might say, well, where would you go to buy shoes in your local town? How would you look for it? And I'll kind of walk them through and ask them questions, and sometimes it twigs and they say, right, so just because someone's typing in the words designer watch doesn't mean that they actually want to buy it. It just means they could be looking for different makes, but we don't know. And then once they kind of understand that, and they see that even how they search themselves depends upon whether they want to buy something, whether they want more information or whatever, sometimes the light bulb goes off. But as you say, David, it's walking through people. It's almost like you remind people how they search themselves, and when it clicks, then they realise that how they can then connect that with how people would search for what they do. It's crazy.
Yeah, and again, it's that associated cost per term where you want to get. We were working with a fairly large UK corporation a couple of years ago, and it was only 10 terms, within 10 grand a month. They were throwing $1,000 at each term every month, and this is some pretty competitive spaces, so it required it. But then they wanted to double it to 20 keywords. So we said simply enough, you can either double your budget, or there's going to be half as much spent on each, meaning it's going to take you longer to get there.
Invoice to follow.
If ever, because if your competitors are spending $1,000 a month on that term, and you're spending 500, well, good luck. If they're good at what they do, at least. Okay, so go ahead, Doug. Go.
Well, that's the key to any client relationship. I think from the very beginning is you got to determine what the goals are, and then set the expectations based upon the reality. If you don't start out with those two steps, then you're off on the road to problems. Somebody's going to get disappointed in the outcome.
And if you add into that as well, the type of clients, if you look at it from the human side, a lot of clients, the people who you deal with who are looking to buy services, who are looking to do better online, they could be any one of a number of types of people. They could be more into they could be very much from a demanding perspective, where they are used to working previously with an SEO that was very much a master-slave relationship, where they just, they saw us as, where they saw an SEO as a supplier. You could be dealing with someone who maybe wants to second guess you at every step. There's a ton of different personalities that you can come across. So one part is in what we're saying about how we've got to pre-qualify and how we've got to, try and educate them in understanding what the next steps are. But then if you put into the equation, their personality, the way they come across.
That's where I start to price myself out of jobs.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this guy's a micromanaging anal son of a bitch. All right, double the price. Hopefully he goes away. If he does take the price, at least I'm getting enough to deal with his podcast.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I think that on the SEO side of things, as consultants, I think that learning more about the different types of people and how people work and how they think. I'm one of those sort of consultants where, when I first go on the phone with a potential client, how they talk to me, what they say, the way they're coming across, if they're talking over me, if they're not letting me finish my words, that's a good sign that they're kind of someone who wants results now, and if they don't get it, they're going to probably try and sue you. They're going to try and sue your ass off. So I think a lot of the time we just have to follow our gut and try to, we can't.
That's the experience one. You just have to have been screwed over, had enough of these assholes over the years that you start to, like you're saying, you're picking up little signs going, oh, he's one of these guys. Okay.
Absolutely. But I think that for the new starter, for someone who goes out on their own, who's not yet been, had I would call it the privilege of being rejected and screwed over to a degree. If you're starting out new in looking for clients or out on yourself, one of the best things that you can do really is just to learn a lot more about the different personality types, whether people are task orientated, whether they are people orientated, whether they're very extrovert or introvert. And if you can get good at dealing with people generally and meeting people and just get, the best thing you can do, I think, if you start off, is go out, do some networking and get used to talking about what you do and get used to trying to understand who you're dealing with and what sort of type of person they are. Because then when you're on the phone, when they start talking to you and they start saying things and how they sound on the phone and the words they use, you can pick it up from your experiences of dealing with people offline. I think that's a really good thing. If you're really used to building links and you've never been outside your room in your life, I would suggest before you even start thinking about going out on your own, get good at meeting people and greeting people and getting on and just really asking questions and get good at asking questions and listening, because that's how you learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in my experience, it's always been that you listen in between the lines. I think I heard when I was away from here but still listening, I heard somebody say, and I think it was you, David, they don't always know what they want. And sometimes you can make recommendations or make suggestions that they hadn't thought of. So, just wanted to throw that in.
I think that happens more times than not for me. You know what I mean? Again, I tend to end up going, well, you seem to know you got a direction, but we should really do this and really do that. And like Tony said, you have to now educate them as to why. And usually if you do, they'll start to come on board and go, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Absolutely, David. And that's something I put in the comments down below. One of the things I've actually found very helpful, I've been doing this since 1998, kind of like you guys. Long time in, but the same concept goes into play. I mean, everybody's writing for links and all these other crazy techniques and stuff, but what it comes down to is it's your user experience, it's your customers. Are you telling them what you want them to hear? Are you selling them online, and then all the way down to the customer service funnel? I mean, are your sales reps actually following through what you're selling online? Are they educated enough? And some companies or marketing people don't.
And I think that's a huge risk I've seen. Like I'm not an agency that has sales reps, but I consult to agencies, and I've heard that a lot of times. That, the sales guys are picking up clients and with poor expectations and things like that. That all of a sudden the SEO team inherits, and he's like, ugh.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, because then now you have expectations for the customer that they are going to think that you're going to get them #1 rankings, and none of us can guarantee that, especially with this last update.
Anyone who does is not for real, I think.
Yeah, I've never promised that ever since I started in this, and I watched the link, the link wheel, everything that we've all watched as analysts throughout the years of what worked and what didn't work. And then did it make sense to us to do that? Possibly not. But then there's other good things that we've done in the past as far as different marketing techniques that are long-term. One of the biggest things I've always been a fan of is do no harm. If you're looking...
I knew it was you.
Really, I mean, it comes down to. Thank you so much. I mean, it comes down to a couple of things I learned a long time ago. You know, I actually worked with a few clients that were buying links, and they were killing it. It was awesome for them. But I was like, how does this long-term affect you? You know, how does this long-term affect you, and is this really a good thing for you as a business to be doing? Does it feel wrong? If it feels wrong, it's probably wrong, right? And here's the thing. I mean, Google, we've seen, you know, even throughout the entire history of Google, when they first started, yeah, they were, you know, a great index. It was just like everybody else, InfoSeek and Ask and everybody else. But what made them differentiate themselves was the organization of the web. It's so complex, and the tools that they've given business owners. I mean, look at what we're doing today. We're having an entire hangout across the world. People are listening. I mean, that's not ever happened in our history of actually marketing. But then you have a lot of new marketers coming up.
Well, look at my home away from home, Google Webmaster Tools. You know, didn't have that 10 years ago, man.
No,
you know, I look at some of these young punks today going, you got it good, man. You got all these Majestics, you got Google Webmaster Tools, you got all this stuff. We didn't have that, man.
I mean, David,
what the fuck up,
David, you and I both been studying this algorithm and multiple algorithms for years, right? And we've watched the patterns, we've seen what happens, and we've seen the direction where Google wants to go. Let them go the way they want to go. They're doing a fantastic job organizing the web for us. Sorry. All right. I'm getting off my pedestal. Get back on it, Dave.
Okay, so let's go here next, since we're on the proposal stuff still. What about fishing trips, ladies and gentlemen? How do you guys do it? Like, at what point, you know, there's always that fine line when the new prospect client is asking questions and you're educating, and there's that fine line where you start to think, is this guy on a fishing trip? You know, is it time to either tell him to pay up or get the fuck out?
You know, I've had tons of those. I'm sure you've had as well. You know, you've got to pick and choose who you're going to deal business with. I mean, if you feel wrong, if something's actually, like, I've been proposed so many times with so many different industries that I'm like, I'm sorry. I have a lot more respect for myself and my family to just go out and just make money to do that. You know, I've been a white hat. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that say white hats don't exist, but we are all white hats, even though we don't.
But to be honest with you, I've never been a fan of that. I know it's off topic, but to me, a black hat is truly by the nature in which it sounds, meaning doing illegal things like hacking sites and dropping links. Everything else is just degrees of risk.
It's ethical.
And ethics only play in it to me if the client is made aware. If the client wants to build private crazy networks and this and that, and you get him to sign off on the fact that you've told him what the risks are, this and that, you've taken care of your ethical obligations.
I've always released those clients. I won't even do those techniques. Not even if they pay me.
Well, I don't, but I know a guy who does. So I told a guy the other day, I'll introduce you to someone.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. It's like, okay, you want to actually spam? Cool. Here's the guy to do it. But I'm not going to come out in public and say who that person is. It's a matter of, okay, that's what they choose to do. But I don't choose to accept those type of clients. Like you guys were talking about in the beginning, choose wisely. Do you feel like this client's going to actually abuse you and then take you to court? Or is this client going to be effectively engaged in learning what you're teaching and participating with the rest of the staff in their company to be successful? Or are they just sitting on the sideline saying, hey, I'm spending money, I want rank?
Tony, so back to Tony, the fishing trip stuff, man. Where do you find that line of when, you know, it looks like this is going nowhere, I'm giving too much information away? Where's that line?
Well, you know, with what William just said, you know, some clients think they want to win online, but actually they're not that serious. They just want it for vanity purposes. And I think that sometimes we can care so much as SEOs to want them to get success that sometimes it's as if it should be our business rather than theirs. And I think you've really got to focus on, do they have a real need? Do they really want it? Are they willing to listen? You know, and if they're not, then you know, goodness me, if they're not going to care that much about their business or winning online, they just want to throw a bit of money at it and try and get top just because they want to get top, then that, in my opinion, is a very bad example of a potential client, because there's got to be some kind of a, what's the word, as William said, engagement, and you can track engagement.
And I think to a degree what resources they have in place already coming in the door. Like, now I started with a small business this week, meaning him and his wife run it, but you know, it's a well-placed enterprise. It's been around for 9 years and da-da-da. You know, when I came in the door, he had a dev team, he had a split testing guy, he had a social media manager. You know, I mean, he actually, as a small business, had people in place for all this. He had all his e-commerce tracking set up in Webmaster and Google Analytics, etc. I mean, he was really well organized. And that gave me a lot of confidence in wanting to work with this guy, because, you know what I mean? And he's got PPC data, he's engaged with that for... So coming in the door, it was nice to see all these resources in place that, like you're saying, you could tell this guy's more serious about it, and that, you know, you're in a good situation where you can actually be effective.
Absolutely. and I think that when you, you know, right from the first moment, when, you know, as I said before, when you first pick up the phone and you go on the phone with them and they start talking about what they want to achieve, you can tell a lot, because if someone says, well, we just want to rank, and you say, well, okay, well, let's step back a bit. Why have you called me? What's the reasons? Tell me about your business. If they really just want to talk about ranking highly in Google and they don't want to divulge anything about their business, then you know what? There's books they can read, that they can go and do it themselves. It's not worth the time and hassle. It has to be someone who's willing to let someone else take the reins, and allow an expert or someone that knows what they're doing to methodically, practically go through various steps and take the lead. And a lot of people who want rankings aren't used to having someone telling them what the next steps are. They're used to telling someone, like they do a delivery driver, I want that box there, I want this box there. You know, as soon as you start feeling as if it is a master-slave relationship building between you and a potential client, as I said, I would sort of walk away. But and you know, sorry, Marge.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, you know, we aren't order takers. We are professionals.
Absolutely.
We're experts in our trade. And when, you know, they start treating you like you are, you know, the short cook, or what do you call it, the people in the kitchen, you know, give me a fried egg. It's just like, you know, that's not the way we work. This is a project. This is a partnership. We're working together on it. You know, I'm not your slave. You know, and people like that don't last long with me.
Oh, I told my wife last night I tend to just rent my clients' businesses. If I make them 10 grand a month, he's got no problem giving me 5 grand a month. I'm essentially going to rent your business to make myself money, and I'm going to give you a cut. You know, here you go. Thanks, buddy.
I often liken the relationship to the client. I often liken the relationship to them with their consultant as one of going to your doctor. You tell the doctor what hurts. He determines what your treatment should be, how much of it you should take, and when. And if you're too stupid to listen to him, you're not going to get well. You know, and that analogy normally works pretty well.
Doc, and if they're surfing WebMD and getting their own medical advice to follow that metaphor, they can sometimes turn into more trouble than they're worth, really.
Exactly.
Well, you've got those, and then you've got your regular people. I mean, you can't. You're going to have a mix of either one, and you just got to be able to figure out what you're getting in your analytics first. Your user experience is going to tell you a lot more about your people and what they're doing, and then effectiveness of. If you were to write an article or show a video talking about that subject, you're going to have a split audience, but still you're going to have an audience that's going to participate and engage with you. The other thing is where you're with clients, and I want to add something to Tony's analogy there, which was, you know, clients regularly will actually sit there and say, well, I want ranking, right? But when they don't participate, they lag. So, for example, if you're actually rewriting a page, as an example, okay, so how long does the response happen between how many revisions you've done on that page until it's executed on the page? Now, those are the things that clients actually lack because, oh, I've got a meeting, or you do a monthly meeting where you're going to be able to go through all the details that you've done with them, and then they go, well, I just don't have time with you.
Well, implementation too is who's implementing what and so on is going to affect your work. I literally gave up the corporate stuff, which I had clients paying 10 grand a month to go back and do SMB stuff, because I know there I'm connected to the owner. I'm one step from the developer, et cetera, et cetera. And this corporate stuff, we'd send stuff up the chain, and we'd like, okay, give us an estimate when that'll be done. Well, according to the dev guy, it's about a month. And this is like title tag changes and stuff, and it was like a month.
And it drives us nuts.
And then you're going to look at me for results and start bitching at me for results in a few weeks, and then I'm like, well, I sent these changes to the dev team, and now I'm sitting on my freaking hands waiting.
Sounds very familiar, like the financial team. They're very strapped. They can't use certain social, but yet they can use YouTube, but they can't use Google+. There's all sorts of different crazy rules that these industries have. I mean, you got attorneys, you got financial institutions. What can you and what can't you do?
Oh, we worked with a major auto manufacturer out of Europe that everyone would know. We were consulting to them. And yeah, literally every image that we wanted to use of the car itself and this had to be approved. Like, literally, they had to go up the chain, someone say, because it had to be the right angle. They had a set of guidelines we were given on what angle the car could be at and all this kind of crazy shit, dude. It was like,
just take a picture. Yeah, just take a picture, have the metadata that you took the picture right there in that spot, make sure it's actually clean and crisp, and then modify if you need to. Yeah, no, I understand where you're going with that. You know?
I mean, if you think about it, you've also got, you know, as well as there being Google and the clients and the potential clients, you think about our field. There are people in our field who we all have scorn for, those who will come out and they'll send scammy emails, they'll try and sell SEO for $50 or 50 quid. So whenever, think about this.
50 quid.
You know, within our own industry, we have got a whole bunch of people who are crap at what they do. They've got no idea about about client relations. They send out emails, and our clients think, well, you know what? He's given me a proposal for $1,000 or £1,000. They've quoted £100. Oh, look at this. They've already got a website over there doing really well, or whatever. So I think I'll go with them. And it's often until the next Google update comes along that they get their ass kicked from left, right, and centre, and then they start thinking, well, that's not fair. And people, if they're almost serial SEO users. And part of this is the fact that in our own industry, we have a ton of people who don't give two shits, excuse my French, about the client, about customers, about long-term relationships. What they really give a crap about is making enough people give them $50, and if they can find 100 of them, they've made their money. And we have to find ways of dissuading these people to use these other idiots, because if we don't, we're going to end up as an industry that's going to combust. You know, it's going to self-implode, because we you know, and how we make a difference is that, yes, there'll be clients who will go with these cheap and tacky cowboys and who haven't got a clue, but we've got to be able to have our sale up ready and waiting for those clients who are serious. And it just, you know, we just have to use one or two examples of how we've worked with other clients and results we've done, and they will come down our path rather than that cheap cowboy who's got crap between his ears. Yeah, exactly. So, but the problem we have is that we don't realise that for us to stand above the crowd, we've got to pay a price. We've got to be able to think differently. We've got to be able to work smart. We've got to be able to add value. It's no longer enough just to be an SEO to get work, because everyone and their Tom, Dick and bloody uncle is doing SEO. Every kid who's at college has optimised his dad's website for like £15 on bloody One-on-One or GoDaddy or whatever.
And pretty much every web design company out there these days seems to offer it.
Oh, well, yeah.
One of the things that everybody's offering is just SEO. SEO is I hate to say it, but SEO itself, by itself for a large operation, is dead, because it's just not SEO. What we've been doing is under the label of SEO, but what we've been doing is basically running an entire corporation from the web all the way down to accounting.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, the people often who sell these cheap SEO services who don't have a clue, you know what? They go onto LinkedIn and they ask about, is keyword density still important? These idiots in the SEO field, they'll go somewhere and they'll say, so how many times should I put this keyword on the page?
I remember we used to see it on the forums back in the day all the time. Some guy coming in and asking about, you know, how do I do this and that and this and that? Then you look at his fucking signature and he's selling SEO services. And here he is asking some pretty simple questions. We're always like,
Yep. Exactly. So, so just because we're SEOs, just because we do internet marketing, doesn't mean by right it doesn't mean by right that we will have people beating their path to our doorway and wanting to work with us. We have to do things differently than we did 10 or 5 years ago. And the best way of differentiating ourselves over all the other people who don't do a good job, I'm not saying everyone does, I'm saying, that there was amount that don't do a good job, is to be able to be attractive to a business owner. Because if they're serious about their business, then they should well be serious too about other people helping them. I mean, these business owners,
well,
right?
Is the SEO talking to you about rankings, or is he talking about making you money?
Yeah, exactly.
Because my job is to make you money, my friend.
Yeah, so. If you think about it, every business has an accountant, every business has a lawyer, every business has suppliers or whatever, or consultants and partners. So we have to, if we think that we deserve a right on the table of the directors' meeting every year, if we believe that we deserve to be sitting next to a guy who's turning over 10 million, who needs to be able to increase his market share, if we think that'll come across, we'll be 3/4 of the way there. The problem we have is we have this, rather stupid banner over our heads that because we're SEO, that means you do scam. And we just have to, unfortunately, I think we've just got to accept that, and we've got to keep on proving it. In our lifetimes, is it ever going to go? I don't know. Think about using,
Tony, that's why we're not SEOs. We're marketing coaches. I mean, really, that's what we're doing is marketing coaching. We're the CEO.
Yeah, but that also depends on the situation. Again, there's some times where you're working under the marketing director and you are part of the food chain. We've had gigs like that. So, no, I'm still an SEO, but I'm advising to the PR people. I'm advising to the social teams.
Yeah.
I'm advising to the development teams and stuff. There are times I'm purely an SEO working with other teams.
Well, and sometimes you'll come across a client that actually has a good marketing plan and crew in place, but they just haven't been able to embrace internet yet. They just haven't really learned the nuances of doing it digitally. And so they need some guidance, and maybe all they're looking for is the mechanics of getting visibility.
And
maybe they're looking for social, maybe looking for search, but
go Steve.
But Doc, that goes right back to the whole engagement of what is the meeting about, what is the client looking for, and what can you help them with? Not pitching an entire rebuild of a website and all sorts of crazy things. Let me throw a twist into this conversation, if you don't mind. Let's take some large marketing agencies, for example. We've seen a lot of them dropping in the rankings, especially after this update, as well as the other updates from 2011. So we've actually seen a steady drop in certain ones. I'm not going to name any ones, but when you're actually marketing from one IP location, or say you're taking 200 clients, just take 200 clients, and now all these clients are basically having their social media and everything else taken care of for them, but it's all coming from the same IP location. Does that actually have any feedback to the algorithm saying that, hey, this is actually a marketing company, and then when the real person actually posts, is that really legit?
Which channel or social media network are you talking about specifically?
Let's just say Google+.
Okay, restate the question again then, please.
Okay, so my question is this. You've got a large agency. They normally would have about 1,000, but let's just take 200 clients, right? And these guys are basically...
agency has 200 clients?
Let's just say
large agency have 50 clients that are 20 to 50 million in valuation.
All right, you got it. Okay, so they're growing. Let's just say they've already got 5 different locations. They are doing comment spam. They're doing all sorts of...
I'm talking thousands of locations, 800 plus, 500 plus.
I don't care about the number, guys. Number is irrelevant in this conversation. So here's what I'm thinking. Okay, so if somebody is posting from one location, one IP location for 200 clients, or 1,000 or 10,000, right? Doesn't that show a signal of an IP location of a marketing company pushing out posts for a client that's actually used by a content writer and everything else? It's not the company pushing the news out. What's the differentiation between if I was to be posting with the company and the company.
Because that's actually very normal practice, and I don't. Go ahead.
Time out. The actual answer is it's an editor role on Google Plus.
It's a what now?
It's an editor role on Google Plus because you have an owner, a moderator, an admin, and an editor. And
Correct.
so the editor function on that. So, but the other part is if you're talking about locations, then normally you would have a master account, say a Google Plus account for a brand that normally is google.com plus something that actually has a custom URL for their brand that links to their domain names verified and all that kind of good stuff. And then if they have, say, 50 locations underneath them, at this point in time, Google actually has not made the bridge between those locations and the Google Plus.
That's what I thought. Now take that on a smaller level. I mean, that I understand it as a bigger level, but take it as a smaller level, just a basic lead gen site, not doing much traffic, like a little mom and pop.
Well, but let me give you a bigger picture of what you're trying to say, but let me give you the bigger next level, which is you have 127 clients in your Google Analytics, Google Webmaster Tools account for one Gmail account that's accessed by 5 to 6 different IP addresses for one agency. Okay. Now, from that, understand that I'm going to be in 5 to 6 different GA or GWT accounts on a daily basis. Okay. From one IP address, that's if I'm using this IP address or I use a different IP address or I'm at a different location or a different office or spoofing or whatever. Okay. However, if you are a certain type of agency and you're managing clients, there's a certain standard of how you do things that Google understands. So you, as an agency, will get 10 clients, and or all your clients will automatically get Universal Analytics last year.
Kind of like what we're doing with our paid advertising. Manage everything through the MCC.
So yeah, at the end of the day, it's about at the end of the day, what we're looking at is come on, man, hold on. Is it seen as spammy? But like I think Steve, I'm gonna even come on. Steve made a good point, and I'll let Steve finish his point. But Steve made a good point that if you are doing good practices in this net, there's no signal to be sent for them to target you on any level by IP. Now, if you're spamming and somehow they want to go and access that data at some point to see what you're up to, different animal. But it's a very natural thing in the environment for marketing agencies to be posting on multiple accounts.
And David, that was my point. This agency is growing in its thing, but it's still spamming, and it's spamming all of their clients, and I don't understand why they're getting away with that.
Well, are you reporting them?
Yes and no.
Can you make them show up as a spam result in a Google SERP result, and are you using spam report to report that SERP?
I've taken 5 clients from them on really accident, just seeing if I can actually help them.
That's a different question. My question is simply a technical one. Have you done the spam reports at this point? Then if you know they're doing spam and you have a Google Webmaster Tools account and you sign their SLA or whatever service agreement, you are actually bound to report that.
And I have. And I'm actually building an entire document that documents all of their clients as well as what they've done with those clients and what they're continuing to do with those clients. But my problem is
I don't think you need to do that. I think you just need
I'm outing a very large corporation here in my city.
Right.
And so do I really want to have the rebound of backlash of people in the Chamber of Commerce is going, hey, William outed this guy, and now all our customers. But then at the same time is all those customers realize they have a penalty they have to clean up.
Well, you don't want to do that because at that point you've then alienated all those potential customers. So at this point,
I don't want those customers, though. I just want to help them get out of this penalty that they're actually in.
Well, but my point being is, don't take the reputation hit. Just do what you're supposed to do. Report the stuff to spam report. Let Google sort it out. I.e., Panda, what happened? Last week I'm doing some stuff for a client that had 222,000 links back to my client's website. Well, now they're number 10 on the Panda update now.
Yeah, so because we've been actually able to do. I mean, we're doing best practice. We're going back to best practice. I've got the same thing. These clients that came to me with problems, they had the waterfall effect, and now they're actually doing more business than they ever had.
Exactly. But Dave, to your earlier thing, black hat, whatever. There's ultra wide hat, which is basically at some point you reach a level of SEO where you tell Google what to do because Google is a learning, thinking machine. Correct?
That's what we do. We're the ringmaster, my friend. I don't have to play the games. So, Steve, where you're at, you know what I mean? Are you part of the sales process over there, or are you picking them up afterwards?
Let's see. All right. So we know that we've got an RFP from somebody, right? I don't see the RFP. That my superior is someone who I used to be a mentor to and work with on a Fortune 5 client for several years before I came to Rockfish. So at this point, there's a relationship between my boss and I. There's a lot of trust of, we have been requested by this client to do this. This is what they're looking for. Go find this, but I think we can find X, Y, and Z, and then I go find A through F for them and basically find a bunch of different solutions, and that goes into the pitch, which I'm not a part of because the people that I have above me understand what I do and what search does and what ORM does. So that's into every single client we interact with. Search and ORM and social media management and that kind of stuff is in every presentation because it's part of our capability. However, sometimes we don't fulfill that role. We fulfill like a web design role or an application development role for a different client. We're not the SEO, so I just got to keep my mouth shut. It's a hard thing to do, but you know me, right? But the other part is what needs to be done. How is the scale? To what you were talking about earlier, if the client comes to you and says we want to do a blogger campaign, then we want you to manage a blogger campaign because we have 200 locations and they don't have all 200 locations claimed to Google Places for Business. That's kind of like, well, okay, when do you want me to? We need to fix this. Otherwise, we don't want to do that. And so you just basically, you divert the activity or divert the budgets, and then you reflow statements of work and RFPs to say, it's in your best interest to just solidify your 280-something Google Places locations because right now you only have 10 of them claimed. And if local is a big part of your business because of mobile, and you see that now 65% of your traffic is from mobile devices for location or contactual queries, then you need to get on the ball and get your locations registered.
With those kind of clients, I also find that nobody's even thought of the interlinking. I've worked with people with 300 dealers and stuff like you're talking. 13 countries, 300 dealers, and the interlinking is just crazy. It's all over the place. No one's ever thought about how they're passing equity around this. They've got a de facto fucking network, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
And it's a legit network because they all link to the mothership, and then there's, each of the regions has a dealer and what have you, who's got his own website. So.
Right, and if you have 800 location pages, then how do you make sure you have unique content every one instead of doing the whole let's link to the local Chamber of Commerce spam thing, which doesn't work anymore, right?
So, boys, we've mentioned it a few times, so I guess we'll go there. Managing client expectations. Obviously, it's part of the beginning process, but I think that actually goes all the way along because they start to get antsy and expect results. And, how much time do you guys spend managing those issues, those concerns, which I just call it managing expectations. But so, again, this is where I think it was Tony, where someone was, actually it was William, was talking about those, little shitheads that are out there, and they'll sell stuff for 500 quid and whatever. And they're promising great expectations, and that's where people get burned. Those of us that are realistic, we have to sit there and go, no, this one's going to take you 6 months. This one's going to take 10 months. And, it's managing the expectations on an ongoing basis, I find, is a juggling act.
Yeah, I mean, patience is a virtue. And one of the problems that we face is that in our field, you can see some websites that go to the top pretty quick for whatever industry, through various methods, which can be seen as temporary, purely because the ground in which they're based in that success on is shaky. Along comes Google and screws it up. So, the expectations from a client, right from the outset, right from what they expect to achieve and what their objectives are, it's far better to under promise and over deliver. If someone isn't willing to wait, if someone really wants results fast, Maybe they just need to go online and get more social and just really do it where they have where their offline marketing campaign and the online marketing campaign meet up quicker, where their offline branding and the reputation they've already got, and via email newsletters and via social or whatever, get some quicker success because they're using their site then as a way of a landing page site while the SEO is working on. So just because somebody wants quick results doesn't mean we can't do it. It could be where we help maybe repurpose their content, where we help them to to use some existing marketing channels and some existing branding that they've got for their business, and use their website with some good conversion updates and stuff to be able to get results. It doesn't always have to be ranking top. But so while that's happening, then you can work on maybe the more the visibility side. Again, it's a case-by-case scenario. I've never had two clients that are identical. Whether it's two guys selling watches from an e-commerce site, whether it's maybe a national company who provide car rental, or accountants where they've got bloody 20 offices around the UK. Every single scenario is different, and part of the headache, if you will, as us as online marketing consultants, is to try and work out the solution before we get paid for it. Because how on earth do you quote for something you know nothing about? So you kind of have to get a much better idea as to what they're trying to achieve. And a lot of what we do is we have to see ahead. We have to think, well, they want this great, they want these results, so we've got to do A, B, C, D, and E. Then there's F, G, and H. Then there's I, J, K. Socials, L, M, N, O, P. And then crikey, then we do content calendars and editorial work with local bloggers and journalists. And by then it's Z. Well, they just wanted to rank top. So in many ways, you know AK John. You know AK John's wonderful post about stone soup. I don't know if you're aware of that. There's a fantastic.
Not sure. Yeah. I don't think so.
There's a fantastic post by AK John. Sorry, AJ Con. Regarding stone soup, and he talks about how, right from the outset, with a potential client, you can, they want ABC, and you can give them that, and you can hold their hand, and then as time goes on, and they walk with you, and they learn to trust you more, and and they start to see the results, they eventually have what they need. But rather than going in there trying to sell them the whole new real estate apartment when all they wanted was a bed to sleep in for the night, you walk them down that path. So again, it's really about understanding how they kind of, just because if someone's got a bad leg, you don't chop it off and give them a new one. You give them some massages, you give them some tablets, you give them some physio, right? They might need some physiology, whatever it may be. It could be their diet that's causing it. And I think that the more that we enable ourselves to be indispensable, the more that we enable ourselves to be, of a smart mind, of a smart approach to their business. Crikey! The other day I had a chairman ring me up, literally, when was it, on Wednesday, and he asked me, Tony, this has nothing to do with internet marketing or SEO, but we're developing their site. He said, but I value your input. Can you give me some advice on how to do our letterheads, please? I said, for you, Ken, it would be an absolute damn pleasure. Now, that's got nothing to do with SEO or internet marketing, but it just kind of shows that he values my opinion. And that's what I was trying, that's, as a consultant, that's always what I'm trying to achieve. It's, if people can value your opinion, even if it's got nothing to do with what we do with internet marketing, imagine what happens when you suggest that they take a different term with their website. They're going to say, well, of course, okay, you're suggesting it, no problem at all.
Go ahead, Marge.
Well, I'm just curious, does managing expectations also include scope creep?
Yeah, well, that's almost an ongoing thing, but I think they could be related. But scope creep is common for any of us from the web development end of things, and certainly it does apply here too. They start wanting more and adding more, and can you do this and that? I tend to deal with that stuff contractually by saying, anything outside of this will be charged back at $200 an hour. It keeps it to a minimum.
But I mean, and that's true, and you can write it up, and they can sign it, and you can have an authorized contract, but they can still try to say, well, I didn't understand what that meant. So I just thought I'd throw that in because I do think they're related.
That's why you use job numbers to get clients sign off on each job number.
Okay. Well.
Work orders, baby.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. But
it hasn't worked well when I'm doing web development as well as other marketing consulting because they go, they do tend to push the envelope.
Oh, because I've put in some invoices at times that include, $300 for emails, and the guy will be like, "What, dude? I spent like 4 hours doing these emails, or 3 hours, So you want to email me 5 times a day, it's going to cost you." And then they'll slowly learn to be more concise and start. Okay.
Change your minimum billable unit to half an hour.
Well, there you go, even better.
Because at this point, you got to realize at this point, if I have to stop what I'm doing, I have to log out of Google Webmaster Tools or Google Ad Planner or whatever I'm doing, my research, and I have all my stuff there, and I'm working on this. If I have to log out of that to answer an email, then now I've got to look at an email. Hey, could you check this? Well, that means now I have to log into your Google Places account. I have to log out of the other one, log back in.
Right.
Okay, I checked the information. By the time I'm now back to what I was doing, and then you have to do your due diligence and then reply, read your reply, make sure your reply is correct, spell check your reply. At this point now, I spent half an hour on that at least. You know what I mean? And if it goes over that, go ahead and bill for an hour because you're not going to get back to your other thing because at that point you're going to go get Gatorade, go to the bathroom, come back, and now you're working again, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's all very true, and spontaneous phone calls are a no-go with me, and clients resist that too. Why can't I just call you? Because I'm busy and I'm, working, and when you call, you interrupt.
Yeah, why can't I just call you? Maybe you're in your shop with a customer. Why would that be acceptable for me?
Right.
But I mean, isn't that because the way in which we are perceived at times is that, well, I can call my accountant or I can call my lawyer up, and it's like, well, don't you realize, guys, that if we're in the middle of doing work, I think it's because clients don't realize or understand. Again, this is due to education. The thought that goes into putting together something that, sites don't get to the top of Google. Sites don't increase their search, their visits, their organic visits by 400%. People don't increase sales by 600%. Leads don't come through the door simply because we've touched 3 buttons, written down a few things, and we've waved the magic bloody wand. It doesn't happen. We need to think. We need to, we are surgeons. We're brain surgeons. I know it sounds a bit of a harsh thing, but we are. And, I was talking to one of my friends online called Lauren Hulstigertz, and we were talking the other day about brainwaves and theta and God knows beta, and when we get into our zone as SEOs or internet marketers, and we have to look at multiple, as Steve just said, multiple platforms, multiple social accounts. We have to look at connections of Google Plus and YouTube and this and that. Sometimes we go off to Mars mentally, because we're having to think in a contextually complex way and put all these things together and work it all out. And that's thank you. And then someone comes along, hello Tone, how are you getting on with that title tag? So, I spend most of my time with my phone turned off on purpose. People can leave me messages.
Me too.
And I'm not being funny, but can you imagine if we got it wrong? And can you imagine if we got imagine if we got it wrong? And
Shut the fuck up.
Telling me to shut up.
Well, that also drives up the time spent.
That illustrates my point, though, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, if they want to yammer at you on the phone, then you can't really get the work done, and it's just like you've allocated so much time for the effort, and you say, look, you need to schedule the call. Well, Thursday, I'll call you Thursday. What time?
Exactly.
You have Outlook calendar or Google Calendar to do. This.
But don't you just love the client that has a heart attack when you set up a 2 o'clock call on Tuesday, they forget, and they're not there, and you send them an invoice for it?
Oh
yeah.
I've not yet dared to do that, but I've been close with one.
Absolutely.
If am I working on their stuff? I'll send them an invoice. Otherwise, I'm going to go on to something else if they're not available in 5 minutes and just call it a wash.
Yep. What? One of the hardest.
Well, I sat there in 15 minutes and waited for you in a meeting. Here's $250 of a bill.
One of the hardest words that SEOs have ever had to learn to use is the word no.
Yep.
We are analytics, we are analyzers, we are problem solvers, we are growth experts, we're hacks. The one thing we can't do very good in our industry is say no. We always want to help, we always want to solve, we always want to analyze.
I disagree. I say the SEO always has a target. My boss says this. The SEO always has a target on their back because we always do have to say no. Okay? No, you really shouldn't buy yellowpages.com.
Yeah. I mean, right? Yeah.
You know,
obviously.
I didn't know that was exclusive to SEOs. I mean,
well, I mean it's kind of one of those. Well, it's one of those things, and like I said, look at the Panda update. But there's a lot of clients that did that, and a lot of clients sold their brand identities to these directory sites a long time ago, and it's just now still getting cleaned up. So,
I guess I was referring more to saying no to client demands, being able to say no, that when you're in the middle of your zone and you're doing something and you are being paid for doing a job and you are halfway through it, we have the right as SEOs to say to client demands, other client demands, no, because we need to get our job done correctly.
Well, that's common to any consultancy.
Like I'm on my calendar, this time is blocked off. I'm on D&D right now. It says there's a link to Google+.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to come listen and see what I'm doing right now, that's great, they can do it. But right now I'm D&D because I have this time allotted for this. Because
and I'm the same.
I'm used to my Google Plus presence, making sure I don't swear the entire time. A lot of that kind of stuff, and get better for that because this is where things are for that I'm going to have to be doing for clients, and on our website later on, Dave will come be in on Hangout, and hopefully we'll be able to keep our, our language clean and stuff like that. But I mean, this is work. So an SEO doesn't have to just know about search or Google and
it's research and development. When I'm hanging around with people that it's like Ray said in that hangout we had a while back. Surround yourself with people smarter than you. You know what I mean? And I do that a lot. And spend that's talking to Dan Thies or talking to Deborah or someone like that. That's R&D for me, baby. I learned valuable things that I will be applying in the near future. I'm sure as hell not doing it for fun.
One of my favorite examples of, it isn't really scope creep or expectations, but yes, it's expectations. I had a client up in Burbank, California, demanding that I drive up to meet her for lunch and talk over things. Now, that's like a 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive from San Diego.
Well, let's tell her $100 an hour and see if she still wants you to show up.
And I said, well, are you ready to pay my, hourly rate for the travel time? Well, you can work while you're on the phone. No, I can't. And that caused a lot of problems.
That's a 5-hour trip.
Yeah.
That's 5-hour billable rate plus your meeting plus prep plus expenses plus gas.
Which does not bring us back to the end destination of when do you fire a client?
Yes.
When they catch me in a bad mood.
No. when they lie.
Which is almost any time.
Like seriously.
If they treat you like a slave, I've cut them loose for less. It's
I'll give you a list. Number 1, when they lie.
Right.
Number 2, going along with number 1, they did a bunch of link spam, didn't tell you about it. Or they're running a lot of ranking tools, and they're running 4 or 5 different ranking tools 4 or 5 times a day for 30 keywords apiece against Google search results.
Micromanagers are big on my list.
Yeah, like word trackers and stuff like that, because the problem is I know which keywords you did them on because Google filtered because they got mad. You know what I mean? And so I think that, when you start doing other things where you talk about the SEO that is being done for your website publicly in a boastful manner. When they start, doing certain stuff of our SEO outrank certain things and they put it on their Facebook page, then you might have a problem and you might not want to make a lot of good rankings for them, and then that becomes a bad situation. And sometimes, and this is when sometimes when you don't fire a client, you think you should, but you don't. A certain client may update their website biannually, and they've been a client for 7 years or whatever, and I'm making up numbers now just to cover my tracks, because I haven't worked at Rockface for 7 years, so there's no way it could be a client for 7 years. See, makes sense. But every time the website update comes down, which again is biannually, the Webmaster Tools, all the analytics, or the Webmaster Tools code, and most of the meta information for all the pages is wiped out. And so then at that point you have to go reflow everything again. It's a different system, re-verify with Webmaster Tools, and you realize this client does this because you've done this, you know, if it's 7 years and you've done it 2 times, it means you've done it 14 times by now, but it's still a good client. And it's, you know, it's multi-million-dollar client, so at some point you don't fire the client, you just understand the quirks or peculiarities of the client that you have to allow for, address, and make sure they're still successful anyways. Make sense?
Yeah. Tony, what's your criteria for letting them go?
Well, it's kind of funny because we recently had a situation where we've kind of done the same thing there. I think there's a couple of things. First of all, if you're spelling out to a client how well you've done, if the figures prove that year on year they've gone up by 300, 200, whatever percent, if they've had more leads and more sales going through, but you know what, they still moan and complain and they still have negativity, they still, you know, that you'll give them 10 great things you've helped them with, and yet they'll find one which is slightly off, which if you interpret it their way, it's kind of, you know, like a half-truth kind of thing. You know, that those sort of clients, as I've said before, they can be almost like bloodsuckers. They can be vampires. They can drain your energy. They can screw your head. They can make you go home and feel absolutely
demoralized. You start getting frustrated. With that one client.
Yeah.
Well, I used to call it the Pareto principle of clients. If a client's taking 80% of your time and he's only worth 20% of your revenues, you might have a problem there. You know.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because when you're a happy camper and passion and excitement, and you're revved up and you're looking at your analytics and you're getting on and getting results done, nothing on this earth can stop you getting results, because you just believe you can just take on anything and you can conquer. As soon as you have a bad apple in a bunch of apples, you have a bad apple. I've had times when I've woken up during the night thinking about them. I've had times when I've come into work thinking, oh shit, have I really got to give them a call? And you know what? That's hard, because suddenly you're not flowing. Suddenly the energy isn't there. So, and you think how that can affect your business as well. Generally, it can screw your head like nothing else. So if that's worth getting rid of them and replacing them with someone who says, Tony, I've been asking you for the last 3 months, can we work with you now? Yes, we've got time, let's do it. I tell you what, you know, a lot of what we do, we are driven. Yes, we're driven by results as SEOs and as internet marketers, but a lot of the time, our emotions, how we feel, how we process stuff in our heads, goes towards how we perform. I don't care what anyone says. There's no one in the SEO field that I know of who, hey, I don't have emotion. Of course, we get a real kick when we see our clients achieving success and getting leads and winning online and whatever. And if there's things that we can do, like pushing clients back, or sacking clients, God forbid, if we say that word on the show, sacking clients, then you know what? Why not? I mean, at the end of the day,
it has to be done, and I think that's really good advice for people that are new, not maybe to SEO, but to working for themselves. Because I think a lot of the times, you know, 10 years ago, I'm sure you're like me, you probably had a lot more of it because we didn't have as much work in the pipe. So, you know, you got to pay the bills. You tend to bend that a little bit and take that client. And 9 times out of 10, you end up going, I knew I shouldn't have taken this guy on. And it's like, you know.
Well, and you know, it's funny, David, there's nothing more damning, there's nothing more depressing than being 2 or 3 months into a relationship with a client, knowing full well that right at the outset, you took it on for the wrong reasons. And, you know, maybe you wanted it more than they do, but you want to help him because, oh, bless him, he's a nice guy. Or maybe because you think, well, you know, that was a bit of extra money, you know. Within 3 months of it, that you getting that £500 or £1,000 at the outset when you know you should have let them go, or you shouldn't have gone with them, could end up costing you £10,000 with other clients, because your time is 80% dealing with this one fucking idiot, excuse my French. And the rest of the time, not. I don't mean to swear, but I don't mean to swear.
Oh, don't worry about it. You're here to dojo, man.
Seriously, you know, and it gets me angry because I as I said, so, you know, for me, I'm very polite. I will say to them, well, I believe that the situation is untenable, or, we've brought your attention to a whole lot of successes, and it hasn't worked out for you. So I suggest we move on. We must never be afraid of saying no. We must never be afraid of calling it for what it is. I think a lot of us are that way inclined. I really think so.
Go, Steve.
Man up.
Were you putting your hand up to say something for the talking stick there, Steve, or what were you doing?
Oh, yes, sir, I was, and then I was on mute, and then I started to go, and I went up, and Google actually said, "Hey, you're on mute, idiot." So, big ups to UX. To kind of what you were saying, I think the word you didn't have in what you were saying was passion.
I said passion.
Oh, you
passion.
did? I did.
Yeah.
I was in the loop. So I think it is because, I want to know that the client understands that we did a good job for them and we got results. And the biggest part of that, and I think the one thing we all haven't said and I keep trying to say but I keep forgetting, is a baseline. Did you do a baseline with the client? Here's the client's goals. You've said this, and it's kind of what the 4 C's was: customer, clarity, content, and then clarification. So basically, this is what the client's goals are. Okay, we understand the client goals. We're going to do research for what the client wants, but at the same time, the numbers and stuff are going to tell us a little bit more information. So then now we talk to the client and say, hey, here's the information we found based on what you told us to look for. So we think it fits together this way. So here's our strategy on how we're going to attack what the market says and what you say at the same time. So it's not a vanity URL thing. It's more of a what's going to make the cash register ring thing. And I think that's really the biggest part of it, is what's going to make that money sound. Because unless the cash register rings, you really haven't done anything for the client yet.
Okay, so I would assume then you would agree that part of that process at that point is also setting the proper benchmarks, KPIs, and so forth going into the situation.
Absolutely, sir.
Which is a great point. What does everyone know? I would assume Rockfish isn't doing the low-end reporting, but Tony, what kind of stuff do you use for benchmarks, KPI, and specifically, here's one I still hear a lot of people still telling me they're doing ranking reports, and I say, why are you doing that? And they're like, well, the client wants that. I'd rather sit there and go blue in the face, arguing with them for an hour and explaining to them and teaching them about, why you probably don't want to set this as a major KPI.
Yeah, sure.
Than I would actually give them something just because they asked for it.
Well, I think there's for me, for us, my company, there's 2 areas. One of them is benchmarks regarding offline sales, so that we can understand and track back. So let's just say that their current sales, based upon calls coming in, based upon what their sales guys are selling, based upon the revenue they're making, the profit they're making. That's the first one, offline. Always get a good idea as much as you can about what they're doing offline and how they're performing. Then you can track it back to online. You can. I mean, some of the things that we use. We will use various tools, including analytics. Things such as obviously the landing pages, the page views, but also goal completions is obviously an important one, but also things like understanding the entrance paths into certain pages, what visitors are doing on their sites, the bounce rates, the site speeds, etc. So we have, and as I said, every client is different. But I think the first thing, and I remember you saying this, David, yourself sometime back when I was on a previous SEO Geeks hangout. I was listening in. You said we first of all work out what the metrics are based upon the client's business. There's certain things in analytics that aren't going to be required for this particular client because it's not it's not relevant. So it's really about helping the client understand what's possible, and then going back from their own individual goals and objectives offline, tracking it online. Ways in which we can use various tools to see that. Maybe clicks for clicks to calls. It could be using software that tells them who's looking at their site. If they use lead generation software, there's many different ways you can do this. But the key is, as I said, to you know, to track it back from offline to online, and then to remind them. You know, part of the problem we have is that, you know, they need clients you do a good job for. They achieve success offline because of it, and they get money coming in. You know, you want to be able to tell them this. You want to be able to make sure that you you know that you go into detail. You know that we're doing a good job. This is the situation we're in. This is the results we've got you, because it's very easy, you know, not to.
Steve, you want to go in on some ranking report stuff here?
Well, I mean, part of the thing is realize from a different perspective. When you get to bigger budgets, you get to higher accountability. If we go do a gap analysis on a client, and we know that for what their product is, the top keyword gets, say, I'm going to use stupid numbers just to be safe, 50K a month searches, right? And currently, they're not on the top 3 pages for that search. But if you were to look at what they sell, that would be what you would call it. So, meaning basically, their brand, their term, or whatever, you know, the product name or the product description, at some point, if they're not listed in the top 3 pages, they're not getting traffic for that term. But if you know that there's large volume of people searching for that term, why is that person not pulling up for that term? Same concept with pay-per-click, is you want to put them in front of the term. So, you know, and then there's another perspective of if you get into online reputation management, you know, because then you're doing a Pareto analysis on the top search results. Like, out of the top 10, on the top 10, number 8 was Ripoff Report. 2 of them were Yelp. The other one were your client's domain. So based on a score of X, that shows that you had X number of presence on the page. Then you look at the descriptions or the Yelp listings. Did they have a negative review, a positive review? Did they have 1 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars? Where were they within that range? Are you going to manipulate the stars on Yelp to be a 5-star? Are you going to go in and change the reviews around and look at certain reviews and share certain reviews on that Yelp website to make sure a different description pops up in the Google snippet for your client search term? You know, how deep are you going in that? And then that ranking report becomes a different animal, especially when you've got people doing those on a monthly basis for documentation of why they're spending, you know, eight sometimes, you know, 8 figures. Is it 8 figures?
6.
No. 7. Hang on, 7, 7, 8. No, 7, 7. Yeah, 6.5 mil would be 7 figures. 7 figures. Well, no. And then on the other hand, another client, when you added social engagement, website development, app stuff, now we're talking about, you know, yes, we're talking about an 8-figure client. You know what I mean? So from a company perspective, does that make sense? So, and kind of like dominoes, if you completely screw up and don't do a good job for the client, or you were to get them banned from Google, that would impact the other parts of the agency that are doing services for the client as well. You know, and then if you look at it from an agency perspective, you've got 3 different departments interacting with the client, and out of those, each one has separate, you know, there's a client services rep, but there's also a project manager for each project, a creative on this project, a dev on this project that's not on this other project. You've got a strategist here, you know, a social content analyst, a search developer, and then a search strategist to make sure the search developers, to oversee the search developer, and then also, you know, fit into the strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, indeed. I guess one of the things I actually do use some ranking tools for is actually watching a query space itself. You know what I mean? To see, because not every algorithm change is obvious. You know what I mean? They're not all pandas and penguins and gooplas and whatever. I like to watch spaces themselves and see who moves up, who moves down, and then, you know, if there is major shuffling going around in a space on a certain term per client, then go and dig into these people and figure out what happened and who did what. Is it Google doing something? Did someone get penalized? Why was there movement? And so I'll actually track all 10 results in that first page and watch it over time to see what it does.
Hey, let me add to that one. In the LRM space, let's say you've got a PIS consumer or ripoff report that all of a sudden moves from a number 9 and an 8 spot up to a 3 and a 2, and because you have, you know, several locations, you're doing it in multiple state, multiple metropolitan areas and reviewing this, and you notice in the same query space a bunch of them move up from a 9 to a 3 real quick, then you go back and realize they're reposting their stuff, and so then you now have to go in and do spam reports because of that information, just like you're talking about, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely. Doc, what are you on there, Doc? Oh, yeah, competitors? Well, yeah, that's it, dude. You know what I mean? Deconstruct it from there. If you see movement, Doc, just, okay, why? No, they go up, they go down. Why did they? What happened here? Is this something they did? Is this something Google's doing? You know?
Well, yeah, exactly. And to me, that's a good flag if a competitor is all of a sudden tripling his budget, or may have gotten penalized, or somebody else got penalized and allowed him to climb up over us. And sometimes it's an indicator of what happened to us, But the report to me, normally a ranking report to my client is to me presenting the wrong metrics. I go for things like traffic and conversions, but of course conversions is often going to be dependent upon input from the client or actually a report coming from him. But if I can show him, okay, well, I got your impressions up 170%, or your traffic has gone up 300%, that's worth talking about. But to me, the rankings for a particular key phrase just don't have that much value in most instances.
I guess we could throw in
like
this.
Steve says,
I think I look at it as more of a milestone, not something that you're checking every week like an idiot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
You go into a client and you're doing an SEO audit and you realize they missed a certain segment of the population that looks at something in the past tense from a support perspective in the user buying cycle, and they neglected that segment of terms. So you add 8 to 10 keyword phrases, and the amalgam make up about 25 very hardcore related support terms that they've been complaining on other message boards instead of actually contacting the client about. You make the client's website rank for those terms. Now that you've ranked them there, they've now seen that they've got more complaints through their own website and less on social media. Make sense? Now that you've done with that, all right, good. What's the next project? What's the next keyword segment? Or what's the next conversion or next user segment that we need to address? Does that make sense, Doc? Not to just say blanket, you're number one for blah, 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 blah. It's what's the end result and what user does that serve in that ranking report.
Yeah, I mean, to tell that you can put position 8 to me is useless. But what you're saying does make sense.
Yeah, user pathing of, we know a user is going to put in our brand name reviews and our brand name complaints when they're in the research phase for looking up the brand because they don't have an association with the brand, because we know people in search either have an association with the brand or they do not. End of story. So, but prior to that association, they're looking up the information of the brand. They're always going to use the word reviews. They're always going to use complaints. When you're in B2B, it's always going to be systems, solutions, services. Those are always going to be keyword modifiers of whatever their core product or service is. There's some things that basically you look at from that perspective of, like we went back to the other day. Are you working with the client to get their inbound phone traffic monitored of what do people call you for on a weekly basis and ask for, and are we addressing those terms in search? And then when you do the analysis, they're not there. So then the ranking report becomes you were not there for these high inbound phone traffic terms. Now you are. Okay, we're done with that. Let's go on to the next project and find the next bucket of hours to bill. Does that make sense? It's address the customer need and then go from there.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm talking about using them, not...
Yeah, not the traditional, here's a report, haha, woo, you got,
Yeah, not that crap.
I'd agree. And it's very common, again, Doc, like the big corps I've worked for, they're still hung up on,
Yep.
Again, I know lots of people have to hand them in every month, and there's still a bit of a blindness to it. But like Steve said, if you explain it differently and show value in it, I don't mind that.
Well, if the MD has to turn over to his boss a monthly,
and that's what it is, dude. Like, well, yeah,
that's fine. I will give you the tools.
And they'll send down these vanity terms, and he says they're coming from the sea level. Just do it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't care to spend my time and his money doing that. I'll be glad to give him the links and the information and send him the raw data files, whatever. And here's a template if you want to do this, but you know what? You're paying me $200 a goddamn hour. You don't need me doing this bullshit. You know?
Well, but in order to justify for stockholders, whoever, like the CMO, if you're the VP of marketing, you have to justify for the CMO, or you are the CMO and you have to justify this stuff to a board meeting or the C-level suite where you're talking to the CFO and other people of, you know, hey, we want to spend $6 million for organic search.
Okay, there I might bend my scruples a bit, you know.
You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, plus the expectation of, you know, how are you dealing the end result of all this stuff with the ranking reports of, okay, what user funnels are we getting after? We're talking about the user for ranking reports. We're not talking about, you know, here's 5,000 terms you rank on. But the other part is when you start going after that you do that gap analysis of what the volume is the client could be getting and they should be getting based on what their product actually is. I mean, we're not going after, you know, news feeds or news trends or some kind of viral keyword path. We're going after what the clients want in search. Is our client's brand, and is their brand properly represented in what their users or customers want to see in search? Have you covered those bases first? And then address where they are in the research cycle, where they are in the, you know, user path. Did I go to the store yet? Did I go to the store and already purchase something? I have a problem, or I'm going to the store, so therefore I want to get directions. Am I on a mobile device? Am I on a tablet? You know, what's my purpose in the visit? You know, short sales cycle, e-commerce, long sales cycle for B2B. I think you have to look at your user funnels, and then you can do small segments. And once you're number one for that term, then go on to the next thing. We're not going to worry about what we were last week because there's other traffic things to do it, and then eventually you're going to ladder up with more qualified traffic for the client. They're going to have increased sales. You're going to show ROI for what you do. You're going to get renewed client engagement. And so you'll have clients that will renew, you know, $5-6 million budgets year over year over year because it's working for them. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Yep. And that's it. You know, I like the one you were touching on there a while back too. Is the customer service department's a great place to find keywords and funnels and even content, for crying out loud, of where you want to be for what terms. You know, if those customer service people are getting these same questions all the time, address them, get them out there, rank for them, and, you know, be in position. Oh wow! So anything else? Actually, I think we hit my whole list. Not bad. Hour and a half. Record time. Woo! There's still people watching us. Hello, people watching. Come on in if you want, or send us questions. Hold on. Do we have questions?
I'll still let Doc speak. I talked over him like twice, so I was going to shut up and let Doc. Sorry about that, Doc.
Oh, hold on. Apparently, Bill's out there. We'll see if Bill wants to sit around and talk with us.
Who?
Oh, Bill's out there.
Come on, Billy. We're waiting.
Send him an invite.
Scope creep expectations. The client is a strategist. That note I left on the board was actually we covered that, where the client's saying do this, do this. Fiduciary responsibility. At some point, do you have a fiduciary responsibility, or as part of due diligence, meaning you have to do you can't work with a client anymore because they want you to do is black hat, or what they want you to do. You know, like maybe you don't want to work with political or religious or something like that because of certain appearances. I don't know. I'm just pulling that one out of nowhere.
Yeah, I was going to say. But sorry, I cannot work with you. Is it against my religion?
Yes, it is. But yeah.
Anyway.
So I mean, I think there's you know, a big thing with us now is legal, because Rockfish is owned by a bigger company that's called WPP. So at this point, there was a contract we got that I was like, score! I've got, you know, big monster, you know, big money coming in for this client to do this work because they contacted it was all cool, and then their legal agreement doesn't work. So then at that point, you know, as me part of a big company, I can't do anything about it because it is what it is, but there's a reason we weren't being obligated to those because it was an unreasonable contract, and we have a legal department to make sure we don't get screwed later on we don't get sued because we looked at the contract first and said what the client wants is unreasonable. If they're not flexible, then we just won't work with the client. So it's not really firing the client, it's, you know, pre-stage. And a lot of times you've gone through the pitch and you've gone through stuff, and then now we have our vendor agreement because we've made it past the pitch stage, you know, work, and they throw a legal agreement in your face, and you're like, we can't sign this. You know what I mean? And then that's a big problem, and I think that's a bigger part of the agency, of that burn of, you know, doing the pitch, getting in the door, and then finally getting to where you can't get the legal contract signed just because the client's going to be unreasonable. So
and that's it, yeah. You know what I mean? I was saying somewhere in my head before you started talking about that, I was rolling around with that, and that's it. You know, because then that expectations come back in, and they, you know, you look at that contract, and they're expecting guarantees or contractually obligated to raising this and that and this and that, and it's like, well, no, I can't do that. I can't contractually, you know, say that I'm going to, you know, in 6 months get you page 1. You know, there's this thing called Google, and it changes a whole bunch. For all I know, your query space is going to get reorganized in a month or two. You know, and then we're going to have to fight back from that. So, you know, right. What you get contractually obligated to is a huge one too. Though, like I said, I don't do the corporate anymore. I'm more in the SMB world again, and so, you know, I tend to have my own contract that I'm pushing on them as opposed to the other way around. So.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, we have a standard service agreement, but I don't think ours is very difficult at all because we really want business, you know, and I normally don't ever have or hear of problems, but a lot of times I never hear of it just because I'm in the work. But, you know, I get the pitch, and then I find out, you know, 6 months later, hey, we got that client, you know, and then, you know, you find out a couple months later, hey, we got that other client. And so, you know, in the space of about 6 months, you find out that, you know, pitches you worked on for the past year, we actually got those clients, but that's how long sometimes the sales cycle is with the large budgets and approval and legal and going through all the stuff. Not to mention the fact you have different segments, and, like, you know, someone bought yellowpages.com, right? And so that's the other part of the client thing, I think, is managing the entities. What I wanted to say before was SEOs are kind of a bridge between the marketing department and the IT department at this point now. We're kind of the mediator or the arbitrator of how we do stuff, and normally as long as we stick to best practices, then we're kind of in what it is. But a lot of times we do have that target. We are the no guy because we're saying best practices says you know, you shouldn't put 50 keywords in that keywords tag. You know what I mean? That's just certain things we know to do, but someone's kid worked there for the summer and did it, but it's a Fortune 50 company. You can't do that kind of stuff. Make sense?
Yeah, man. So I don't know. Bill was asking what are the telltale signs that a client might not be a good one. I think we hammered that one earlier, but I don't know. Bill, always my biggest stumbling block is micromanagers. I hate them. I just hate them, Marge. I swear to God. If anything bothers me more, if there's anything that's going to get a client out the door quicker with me, it's the micromanagers. You know, 10 emails a day. Why are you doing this? Why? Piss off. I got to do my work. I'm just go away, and I'll talk to you. You know, we'll have a weekly meeting on Monday. We'll go through it all. You know, I don't. The micromanagers drive me nuts.
David, I agree. I just turned away a client who I've done one project with him, and he was a hubberer. And he came to me with a fairly lucrative thing, and I could have used the cash after the transmission rebuild, but it's just like, I don't like working with you because you hover. You drive me nuts. So, I mean, it happens.
No, because a lot of times, you know, when I've got, you know, 10 hours to work on a project, you know, 2 of that's surfing right off the bat, doing screen caps. What's out there? What's going on? What's the user see? Where's the brand at? What resources do they have for the user? What are user areas where the user's going that they're not providing information for that user query? Where is the query space crowded? Where is it very open? You know, are the branded queries all shored up? You know, what are their main unbranded queries? And I think at that point, you've got a strategy for the client. And, you know, do you impose that upon them? Do you just write that down and hand it to them and let them go do it? I mean, right? I mean, how do you make that work?
Well, I think all of us face the same problem in that, you know, at the end of a job, when we look at our total invoices versus our total time allotment, our job cost analysis, you know, we're charging $200 an hour, but we're netting like $17.50. So, and I'm often the biggest problem in that. I don't need a client that's contributing to that. I can screw my accounting up all by myself, you know. So that's a biggie for me the creep and the constant nitpicking and looking for hand holding. You know, if I know that that's what the client needs up front, that's fine. And I have clients like that, and I don't mind it as long as it's not a surprise. But when they tell you, no, all I need to do is just give me this report and I'll take it from there, and then they want you to know why you haven't done it yet, and can you change this, and can you do this too, and they're trying to milk you for more and more and more. I don't need that shit.
No.
You know, and frankly, they're not going to get the quality of workmanship that they deserve if they're beating me up or nickels and dimes either. So, you know, I want to have a client that I can be proud to say was somebody that I did something good for. Right. And if they make that difficult, I don't need them as a client.
Yep. You correct me up, but you're right, Doc. Right? You know, our tendency to want to be helpful, and I think David alluded to that earlier. I mean, we want to help. You know, they're in trouble. We want to help, but that can bite you in the back. You know, if you overspend your helpfulness.
Well, it's like I always try to teach people over the years, regardless of the service, if it's web design or SEO, doesn't matter. Is these clients that come in complaining about the last guy. But I always teach people I work with that you don't know both sides of the story. For all you know, he was a fucking lunatic getting up their ass, and they walked off and said, fuck it, I'm dropping you. You know, you don't know, just because he's coming in saying last SEO was an idiot, nah, I wouldn't buy that. You know, obviously he's going to say that, but you don't, go talk to the SEO and find out what he thinks of the guy. You might get a different story.
Exactly, and I mean the people that have come to me, but I've already spent, you know, blah blah blah, and such and such. It's like that's got nothing to do with us.
Not with me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's just I shut them down right away. That's, you know, whatever you spent in the past before we met has nothing to do with the work we're doing together. So, sorry you feel like you got burned, but that's not my issue. And I'm accused of being overly direct at times, but so be it. What a bitch, huh? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I'm on air.
I have to run. I got somebody at the door.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I may be able to get back here. I don't know how.
Yeah, I'll probably be closing the live portion, but I'm sure we'll be sitting here doing our usual thing.
Really? What's that?
Have a few drinks, talk the real dirty stuff that nobody knows about. The real gold comes out off air.
It's so funny to see the look on your face, David. And will you continue with the sound effects, Steve?
Oh, God, did you have to say that? Don't encourage him, man.
Oh, I love to encourage crazy Steves. Does being crazy come with the name Steve, by the way? Because Garrett's has his share.
What?
I was just thinking Steve Garrentser used to be an absolute loony on Fridays, so.
What is that? The surprised rubber doll look, or?
Yeah. No. Ooh. No, I'm just kind of. I'm just sorry. I'm like kind of shocked because I just got notification. Client said yes. Do what you do. I just got big brand name ORM project.
Whee! Congratulations.
Oh my God, yes.
Well, good. You know, you can take us all to Aruba.
No, I don't. I'm not. You know, like the guy was talking about earlier. I get paid well. Okay, not gonna go into it. It's at the point to where you don't have to talk about what you make. I'm real happy about it. I love where I work. I probably want to retire here 10 years from now. I want to grow the business, grow the locations, and you know, I'm like permanent Rockfish employee. I'm happy with that. You know, unless Matt Cutts dies and they want me to you know, take over for him for a while. But you know, other than that, that you and I both know that's probably, well, who knows? That actually could happen, but I don't see that happening for a while. And you know, at this point, there's a lot of clients that have a lot of problems. There's a lot of parts of the SEO industry that I can. Rockfish has put me in the position to lead the charge with Dave and Doc of making, you know, let's do SEO the right way and not be crap at SEOs, as Danny would say, right?
You guys are leading the charge. Wonderful. I'm in the right group.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. Where is the?
Where's our trumpets? Our trumpets. Come on, Steve. Where's our trumpets, man?
Or that song that they played on a podcast.
There we go.
Okay.
And I jumped into the bucket of water with the mountain Thank you.
You guys are just so silly.
Just wrong. All right, so our viewers, to our viewers out there, we're going to sign off for now. We'll still be here. The link is in the event. If you want to come join us, feel free to drop in. We're going to go talk the real dirty stuff now. We're going to have fun. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next time.